Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkinSport live interview. This is a show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If we're just meeting, my name is João Figerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport, and I want to thank you for being here with us today. Let me know in the comments if this is your first time or if you're coming back. If you have participated in our events before, I don't know if you know that, but we're organizing this week an event called the Education Virtual Expo. I'll talk about that in a second. But as I always ask everyone, if you could actually let us know where you're watching from, that would be great too. So also, if you're watching the replay, so if you're not watching it live, but just a replay, leave a comment too. We check all of them. And of course, if I should tell you right at the beginning, if you can, hit that like button there. If you're watching it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. If you hit that bell sign, you get all our notifications. So that's great. With that out of the way, just a few words about iWorkinSport. If you're coming here for the first time, we're a platform to help you accelerate your career in sport. So if you want to work in sport or if you already work in sport, we're here to help you either way. So we organize events which connect you with recruiters in case you're looking for a job, or with academic programs if you're interested in investing in education, right? So programs like Sports Masters, like one that our guest did today, can help you in a very effective way in your career. So as I mentioned, we are at this week until Wednesday next week hosting the iWorkinSport Education Virtual Expo. So we had our first live day yesterday, Wednesday. The next live day will be next Wednesday, the 3rd of November, and will be later here in Europe from 5 p.m. until 11 at night. But that fits very well the Americas time zone, so that will be tailored for them. I invite you to actually, if you go there now, well, maybe just after the live, there's a link in the description. You can go and register and see all the content that's all the presentations from yesterday. You can access that. Just quickly, you are either watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn, but we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All of those places you can find us as iWorkinSport. And with all that out of the way, let me introduce you to my guest today. Today, I have the pleasure to talk to Lena Schoeps, Senior Events and Hospitality Manager at the Mercedes Formula One team, or I should say Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. She's also an alumna of the FIFA Master, and we first met when she was still doing the course. I think it was 2013 or 14, I think. And since then, I've been following her career, first at the IOC and then now with Mercedes. And I'm super pleased to see how much she's grown. So I'm sure she has loads of good advice to share, especially to those starting their careers. So without further ado, let me invite Lena to join me right after this. Hello, Lena. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, João?
I'm very well, very well. I'm glad to have you here at the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Such a pleasure.
You're back in the UK, yeah?
I'm back in the UK, yes. Starting to travel on Monday. It's going out to a triple header. So yeah, 4 days in the UK before it's going out again, yeah.
Great, great. There's already some people saying hello. José Luiz, Grande Zé, saying hi from Santos in Brazil. Otelo James in Dakar, Senegal. Camila, remind us where you're watching from, Camila, please. Oh, by the way, Otelo just mentioned that he was at the expo yesterday and he liked it very much. So thank you for the notes, Otelo. There is Aditya. Hello, Aditya, saying hi to you. Let us know where you're watching from. And Taruka as well. I know she is in India. So yes, please let us know where you're watching from. So Lena, we're going to talk about career today. And as I mentioned at the introduction, slightly, I mean, it was a short one. There's much more that you can add to that. You have a great one. So why don't we start with that? Maybe tell us, all your professional career, maybe what you studied in university, maybe even what you did before working with sport and until where you're now.
Perfect. So thank you very much for the kind introduction, though. I think you summarized it very nicely. So for me, sport was always like the center. So I grew up within a family who did sport all the time. So my papa took us skiing, we went beach volleyball playing. So sport was always a massive part. In 2016, we went as a family to watch the World Championship in beach volleyball in Berlin. And ever since, I was so fascinated in the topic of sport and how the people kind of watching and following it and the emotions within the beach volleyball stadium. So when I then graduated from school, I decided to do a bachelor degree in international business with event and congress management, which was basically my first part in the academic area. Then followed later by the FIFA Master. So the FIFA Master is a program which is focused on international business, in management, humanities, and law of sports. So I was then able to really focus more on the aspects of sport. Before I started to do the FIFA Master, I had 2 stopovers. So I had a quick, I worked 1 year at the German Volleyball Federation with the focus on the European Volleyball Championship for women. So I basically could work in the sport I love. So my sport, which I'm doing in my free time, is beach volleyball. I used to play volleyball, so it was great to really have a deep dive into the sport I'm familiar with. So straight after graduating from the bachelor, I worked a year at the German Volleyball Federation. And then I was super excited to be admitted to the FIFA Master, which really played.
When was that?
The FIFA Master I did in 2014. I graduated from the FIFA Master. So 2013, 2014, with the graduation 2014, yeah. And yeah, I would say the FIFA Master was super important for me, meeting so many incredible people, having a wider outlook in the world of sports. And after I finished the FIFA Master, I moved to the UK, to a little island, the Isle of Wight, where I was working in sailing. So I was in charge of events logistics and the guest program. So a lot of travel already involved around the world, from Australia to Russia, Europe as well. And my ultimate goal was always to work at the IOC, because I believe that sport has such a big power and platform to connect people and create emotions. So after a couple of applications to the IOC, I was able to join in 2016. So I started right at the heart of the sports department, looking into different projects around the Buenos Aires Youth Olympics, working on Pyeongchang and Tokyo 2020/2021. It was great to be exposed to so many different type of sports. And my final stop at the IOC was then in the games department, where the focus was a bit more in event management, hospitality, spectator experiencing, and ticketing. And I was lucky enough to go to Rio to be a volunteer at the beach volleyball venue, which again was my sport. And I think it was an incredible sporting event as well, which definitely gave me a massive outlook how such a major sporting event is actually being placed and hosted, and fantastic people in Brazil. And yeah, when my time came to an end at the IOC, I was jumping back to the UK, working in Formula One ever since. And it's now more than 4 years working on the hospitality event side, traveling a lot, organizing races, meeting really interesting people at each stopovers, and focusing really across both championship, Formula One and Formula E. And yeah, that's me at the moment in terms of what I've done in the past until now.
That's great. That's great. And so your sport growing up, the one, excuse me, the one you love, as you said, is beach volleyball.
Exactly, yeah.
And did you know anything about Formula One before applying to work with Formula One?
No, I didn't know anything. So basically, for me, this was quite a challenge because, yeah, of course, I'm aware of motorsport, but let's say the FIA is like a recognized government federation in the sporting world, but it was never really on my radar to work in motorsport. So whenever I've been asked to apply for the role at Mercedes, I needed to learn a lot about the sport because I had no clue about motorsport. But now it's just it's a fascinating sport, and if you take away the layer of like VIP hospitality and stars and glamour, it is a sport. It is a massive team sport. Of course, we know like the two drivers in a car, but ultimately it's the team around it who do the pit stop practices, who change the tires. So it really, after 4 years, even if I'm not working at a Grand Prix, I'm watching the sport. So it grew to my heart, I must say, yeah.
That's great. Well, being Brazilian, I grew up with Formula One, much more than beach volley.
Okay.
And yeah, I think last week was just a few days ago that we're celebrating 40 years that Nelson Piquet won his first world championship. So I followed for a long time. I'm one of those Ayrton Senna's widows, that kind of changed the sport for us after that. But I mean, still great. And especially this season, we're going to talk about the sport, about your work there, because this is very exciting. Just before we go, there's some more messages coming through, just to shout outs to everyone. So Camila, that left a message before, reminded me she's in El Salvador. Great to know that we're reaching there. Aditya is in India. Nadim here is in South Africa. Felipe says, send saludos. Tell us where you're watching from, Felipe. Tanguy is here in Portugal. And Mike Thompson is watching in Switzerland. Thank you, everyone who's watching us. And if you're watching, didn't write a message, please let us know. And also prepare. I start warming up for you guys to come with the best questions. So this is interactive. Feel free to send your comments and questions to Lena as well. There's a few more here. Anand is in Leicester. Hello. And Geraldo is watching in Kenya. So we're talking to the whole world, Lena, pretty much.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's great.
It's great. This is one of the best things of doing this. So you are the senior events and hospitality manager, also at the Formula E team, right?
Yes.
So explain to us what is your job? What's your job like?
Yeah, my job is very diverse, I would say. So it really goes from the bigger picture overview to the smallest detail. So basically, I'm in charge of organizing the guest programs, looking after the ticketing, accreditation, guest entertainment, scheduling. So everything which really makes our guests feeling at home around the world. Our aim is always that our guests leave with a smile and have this like money can buy experience, because this is what I think sport is so incredible about, that it's a feeling. You either have it or you don't. But we try, in my job, I try to create a day which guests can't forget and get this feeling of happiness, really, after all. And this is really, my job is really split into like the delivery phase and the planning phase. So at the moment, we are looking into the end of the 2021 season, which was quite a challenging one with COVID, new restrictions, travel restrictions, still running a program around the world with all those different protocols, which are differ from race to race. So at the moment, I'm looking mainly into like projects, like the budget forecast for next season, in which markets do we want to evolve our hospitality, and what is the partner feedback looking like, and how can we improve our hospitality and events planning for next season. So at the moment, even though I'm finalizing the on-track season in F1, I'm basically looking already ahead to 2022, what needs to be organized in terms of freight, planning with Formula One, planning with the partners, understanding their objectives and requirements for next year. And then whilst Formula One is still running, I'm also in the preparation phase for Formula E. Formula E is kicking off in Saudi Arabia in 8 weeks, end of January, so in a couple of weeks as well. So my job is really juggling a lot of different tasks at once, prioritizing what's the most important now, keeping in mind that a Formula E and Formula One season basically are always running throughout the year. There's almost never a downtime. So yeah, always quite busy, always something to do. And that's really my job, creating relationships with the partners, guests, suppliers, championships. Yeah.
That sounds super exciting. What are the races that require or that you have biggest, let's say, hospitality operations?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this year was quite different. I think everybody knows of the limitations which are there at the moment. But America is always a massive race for us, Singapore, Abu Dhabi, China. So really the international overseas races attract a lot of interest from our partners and guests. But equally, we have like Silverstone, which is a super traditional race here in the UK, Monza, of course, mainly red, with very, very passionate Italian fans. So there are big races. Germany is not on the calendar anymore. So no, it's not on the calendar anymore. So no German fans at the moment, but they're traveling still. And I think this year highlight was Zandvoort. It was the first time that grandstand guests were allowed again. So suddenly we had this big atmosphere back. Everything in orange, of course, with a massive, beautiful backdrop on the seaside. So yeah, Formula One races are generally big races everywhere.
And does that require you to be to go to all races, or you don't travel to all of them?
So I'm working within a team. So we have 3 other team members in the Formula One side, and I finally have 1 additional team member on the FE side. So in FE at the beginning, I did mainly myself all the races, and in Formula One, I do around 13 to 15 races a year. So
out of 20, is that 21 or?
So in total, we have 23 races next year on the calendar, but I'm doing like 13, 14 races. Or I've done 13, 14 races in the past, and going forward, by progressing my career, I'm trying to step back a little bit from the delivery phase and really looking into more the overseeing side, quality management, strategic planning. So it should be a few less races next season, but I love the traveling. It's exciting.
Right. So what is it that you enjoy the most about your job?
Meeting people all around the world. I think ever since I graduated from the FIFA Master, I just enjoy working in such an international environment, meeting guests and partners from all around the world, and just understanding what's interesting them in Formula One. Why do they love the sport? Why do they come traveling around the world as well to see their favorite driver or team competing at the track? So it's the relationships really which interest me the most in my job. And I think that's if I need to mention one thing.
And of all places that you traveled, this is probably one of the most exciting things for people that are joining a Formula One team. I think, as you said, after a few years, you kind of, okay, you've been there and you've seen that, and then it kind of maybe gets a bit repetitive, but the traveling must be super exciting. So what's the favorite place you visited?
Oh, this is really hard to say because I would almost disagree a little bit with repetitive. Of course, we go to the same locations, but events are always different. So there's always something which makes it very different, or changes in the promoter structure. If I need to, it's very difficult. I mean, I love the Asian races, so I'm definitely a massive fan of the Shanghai race, Singapore, Abu Dhabi. I would say those are my favorite ones. It's mainly warm as well. I don't need to wear my winter jacket, which is always a benefit. So yeah, those are my favorite races.
You don't have to wear jackets in Brazil either, but it always rains.
It always rains, exactly. I'm gonna go there in 2 weeks, and I'm gonna pack my winter jacket because I had really cold experiences at the track, but exciting races though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. You see, as I said, I have a glimpse of Formula One here and there, and I mentioned that especially when Lewis started his career, I thought was super exciting when he was as a very young driver, was challenging Fernando Alonso. But I still remember when Formula One gave 9 points to the winner, 9, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. So at that time, the races in Brazil were in the summer, I think in March, and what was quite hot. Anyway, there's already some questions or comments arriving here. Before I proceed with a few other questions, there is Juan saying hi from Argentina,
Hello.
and Geraldo, who's in Kenya, says Lena has such an interesting career path. How does she juggle her professional and personal life, given that she's on the road almost 6 or 7 months every year?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. So, yeah, I'm on the road almost all the time. And I think it looks very glamorous from the outside, but don't forget there's a lot of jet lags involved as well, in particular when you go into the second half of the season, when you then go from America over to Singapore, Russia, etc. So a lot of jet lags involved. I think you need to be very determined as well in your personal life, and I don't lie, it's a juggle to really find the balance between work and your personal life. So what helps me is sport. So I always did sports. So wherever I am, I'm trying to really go to the gym or go for a walk, call my family, catch up with my friends. So whenever there's any time in between, to really make sure I'm not losing touch with them, because yeah, they are so important for me. And yeah, I think finding this right balance is a challenge.
Right. So Camila is mentioning here, or Geraldo also said that you have a super interesting career path. It is indeed impressive career. I mean, the way you progressed, you described, I think, was super, super cool. And now some people watching may be thinking, if you probably have people asking you all the time to give advice. So what is the advice that you give to someone that think that they want to follow your steps?
It's a very good question, because I think career development is a very, very personal thing. My recommendation is being very determined, like hardworking, and follow your gut. I mean, however you wanna call it, like follow your heart, follow your gut. I think you deep down in yourself, you know what your strengths are, you know where you want to go, having a clear goal where you want to progress in your career, and speaking with people, like choosing your right environment. I need to come back to the FIFA Master, because it was really eye-opening how incredible it is to be surrounded by people who love sport, who have a same vision, who want to develop, who want to learn. So finding the right tribe is super important. And just last week, I came back to Switzerland, where still there's a lot of my friends are in Switzerland, working in different sport federations or working in sport in general. And it's just like growing your network, speaking with them, bouncing back ideas. If you feel like you're being stuck, just call a friend who works in a similar environment to get his or her perspective on it. Because I think this is really my advice, like being open-minded, determined, follow your heart, follow your gut, and have fun in what you do, because we spend a lot of time at work. So, I mean, I travel with my colleagues, I go for dinner with my colleagues. Sometimes we have a day off, we go somewhere discovering something new. So make sure you feel comfortable where you are and who you're working with, and invest your time in.
Yeah, definitely, 100% agree. So Lena, that's sport in general, Formula One specifically, is a very male-dominated industry or sport. So how does it feel to work in it?
I think it's quite an interesting question. And sometimes I'm surprised that in this time we still need to actually tackle those topics, women in sport, similar to diversity. So for me personally, it feels quite normal, because I'm always worked in it. So I was always surrounded of the sporting environment. When I was young, I always was playing beach volleyball, mainly with my male friends. So I'm kind of used to be in this environment of sport. So what I find very interesting here in the environment of Formula E and Formula One is that there are really impressive women out there who made their career in motorsport, who are inspiring, who are supporting other women to really grow in the motorsport environment or in sport in general. So for me personally, it feels normal, and I think I'm quite blessed in this feeling that I feel comfortable in this environment. And luckily, through athletes like Lewis, there's a lot of raising of awareness in terms of diversity in the paddock. I'm aware that motorsport is a very technically driven sport as well. So it's great to see that there are initiatives where female engineers and mechanics are really supported and grown, so that the paddock sees more and more women. And luckily there are already quite a few women actually who I'm working with as well.
Great, thank you for that, Lena. Just so you know, I think while I was asking my question, Mike was writing something more or less in the same line. He was asking you, do you feel F1 is a men's world and women's provide the glamour, like pit lanes, girls? I don't think that exists anymore, but the hostesses, especially in hospitality, or is it increasing equality? I think you touched on that. Congrats on your career. But I don't know, seeing his comment here, is that anything that you'd like to add?
I would just say it's really increasing. So we have massively intelligent women working in the garage environment, be it mechanics or engineers, equally on the marketing side. So I would say it's really, really changing, and hopefully I can encourage whoever has the interest to work in the motorsport environment to just reach out and continue the chat as well, if there are more questions about this. But I would say it's a work in progress, and we're getting into the right direction, definitely.
Great, Elena, thank you. Just to wrap up that topic, I don't know, and maybe not in motorsport specifically, but sports in general. You've been, as you said, working with sailing, with the Olympics. Do you have any particular advice for women wanting to start a career in sport? Or is it exactly the same advice you would give to any man?
I would give exactly the same, yeah. I would just say being confident, because there's no reason why women cannot progress in sports or cannot make a career in sports, because we have also all the the knowledge and the possibilities and capabilities to make a career in sports. So I would just really say and encourage every woman to don't be shy, just go for it. If this is the area you're interested in, definitely pursue it. Yeah.
Great. By the way, Mike says that's well answered, so thank you for that.
Thank
We
you,
have
Mike.
Fabio Laudizio, grande Fabio from Brazil, working at the MBA in Brazil. We want you here in the show, Fabio. It says, great interview. Very nice to hear Lena's challenges and steps on sports. Thank you. Yes, I'm enjoying that very much too. And to everybody else listening there, if you have questions, don't be shy. Post them here. As you can see, normally the questions from the audience are much better than my own. So I hope you can, I hope you can collaborate. So if you take since the start of your career in sport, what would you say was your biggest challenge? You said.
My biggest challenge. So I would really say the biggest challenge is at the moment, definitely finding the right work-life balance, because there is a lot of races, and I've learned that it is so important to have a private life as well. You sometimes tend to be eaten up in this Formula One bubble and work bubble. So definitely this challenge is keeping this work-life balance. I would say is one. And then the second one, I think just, yeah, if you dream big, just don't be afraid of it. So sometimes, ever since I'm quite determined and I have my goals and I want to achieve them, but sometimes big goals can be a bit frightening as well. So I think my challenge is really, keep believing in myself and go for them.
Great. Do you have a favorite story working in Formula One? I mean, so many travels, you've been meeting so many interesting people, meeting a particular, hero, sporting hero that you've met. I don't know, any that you like to share?
I think for me, I was really surprised about the sport Formula One, because I always had a bit of or prejudged it a little bit. Just thought, it's very, is it really sport? I think this was always a bit my question, is this really sport? But ever since I really work with the team and have the privilege to be in the garage and see how a team of more than 20 people work together, my question got answered that it is a sport. And I think this is really my biggest takeaway from Formula One, that I could answer my own question. It is sport, and this excitement being in the garage and being in the pit lane, I think this really fills me with excitement and the sport interest. So I know probably a lot of people were now expecting to say, the glamour in the paddock, but coming back to where I'm coming from, it's all about the sport really for me. And I'm not good with celebrities. Most of them I don't even know. So yeah.
All right. Okay. You never took a ride with any of those drivers, and they so, oh my God, they drove so fast, anything like that?
I've been not invited.
Here.
I walk the track. I think what's really exciting is walking the track. So once it's in the evening, all the work is done. And when you have the opportunity to walk around the track, you meet incredibly fascinating people who do the same, just work out after work. And I think that's really cool, walking the track after work.
Cool, thank you for
seeing
that.
it from different angles. So yeah.
There's a question here from Camila. Is there any kind of internship in the business area at Formula One? How can we start the journey? Is there internships? You when you started, it was already a full-time position. But do people intern? Is that a stepping stone for to do that kind of job?
Indeed, yeah. So a couple of teams actually provide the opportunity to start an internship within the team, and I think it's probably a very great opportunity to really step into the world of motorsport, because you learn it from the ground. There are so many different layers to the sport in itself. Being the marketing side, marketing always has areas and links or ties into the legal side, the finance side, the events, the hospitality side, the partnership side. So indeed, there are internships out, and if you follow on LinkedIn, Formula One, for example, or you follow Formula E, there are often, or not often, but there are opportunities about internships, and I think it's a great opportunity to check out for yourself as well if this is what you want. It's a very fast-paced environment, a lot of travel involved, so it's a great start to understand if it's for yourself. Yeah.
Great. So, Lena, I do have a few more questions prepared, but people are posting questions here in the comments, so I'm going to go through that. All right, and then
Perfect. Yeah.
don't know exactly what they are. I'm reading as they come, and let's see. So, Aditya says, "Hi, Lena. I'm currently doing my bachelor's degree in engineering, which I don't really wish to pursue as a career. My passion is sport, and I really wish to turn my passion into professional work." He broke the message in a few others. Yeah, so in sports, and I think here's the punchline. Can you guide me on the steps I need to follow in order to get into a non-technical role in a Formula One team, like you are doing right now?
So I would just suggest to really follow the different job posting sites, follow on LinkedIn, basically the teams. I mean, there are 10 different teams in the Formula One paddock, but there's not just Formula One. There's Formula 2, there's Formula 3, there's MotoGP, there's Formula E, Extreme E. So it seems like motorsport is not just Formula One, right? So I think if your passion is really motorsports, I would also see, is there a different championship where you could start gaining experience, which then potentially in the future could lead into an open door into the Formula One world. And I think what's important as well, the sport world is quite a small one, and in particular the bubble, the Formula One bubble or motorsport bubble. So once you've been in there, you meet a lot of people who then can recommend you or link you to somebody else. So I think it's really doing a lot of research, like what's out there, what other teams is. Don't be shy to just send an initiative application as well. So see if there's any contacts in HR out there, and don't be shy. Just send applications so they have you on their files. And if there's a job coming up in the future, hopefully they would contact you if the profile fits.
Cool. Now, one interesting point you made is that it isn't only Formula One. There's many other categories in motorsports. So Formula One drivers come from somewhere else. They
Correct.
come from other divisions within, motor racing. Is there a lot of that kind of transition as well between people working on the background in the business, people that were working in other competitions, whether it's tourism or other formulas, lower level, or Formula E or something like that, that actually end up going to Formula One, or they go transition to others?
So once you've decided that you love motorsport, then you try to stay in it. And I can see from at least my time in the motorsport, I mean, I'm only here for a little bit over 4 years. So there are other colleagues who have been in the sport for over 20 years. So from my point of view, definitely people changing between teams. I mean, you will see that some teams cannot pursue and stay in the sport. Then there are new teams coming up, new sponsors coming up, so new opportunities coming up. Also, keep in mind, it's not just about the team. There's also a lot of agencies. There are a lot of suppliers. The championship in itself, like Formula One, Formula E, it's like massive, massive organizations who need to work globally with local promoters. So I think there's a lot of transition between teams, organizations, suppliers, agencies. So when you really want to start a career, it doesn't need to be motorsport. It's any sport. Think about almost map out what are the different ties with different suppliers, and then you could start looking into it, and you will see people moving and progressing their careers in a different stakeholder system. Yes.
Great. Here, there is another question with very different. So Asif Hussein The Asian European sport markets are very different. I have 3 years experience in sports football industry in South Asia specifically. I want to work in Europe, and hence what skill do I work on? Have that, I mean, the skill one is one question, but I want to ask you about Formula One specifically, or motor racing, which is, I know it's global, they travel everywhere. You just were in the US this weekend, you're going to Brazil next time, you go to Abu Dhabi and Singapore, as you said, and China. But the teams are based, almost all of them, in the UK, right? And then you have Ferrari in Italy, there is in Switzerland as well, but it's an European sport. Are there opportunities for people coming from elsewhere to work on those teams? Is it do you have an international environment as well, or are all the teams made mostly by Europeans too?
So, as you rightly said, due to the history of motorsport, there's a lot of teams like basically based in the UK, which is, I think, quite interesting. Lots of teams going out always from the UK, traveling out. It is a very international environment, yes. So it's not just Europeans working on those teams. It's a very, very international environment. And I think with the almost purpose of the sport to be more inclusive and diverse, it's attracting more and more internationals, which I think is a very interesting factor. And that's why I love to work in this environment, because it's international. And so it's not just Europeans, it's international. And
Cool. And in terms, he had a question about skills. Do you have any advice, any particular advice about that, or?
I would say in terms of skills, what I find always very, very important is languages. Languages is a very basic skill, but if you go to a country like Asia, then it's great if you can speak Chinese, because you need to speak with the local promoters, you need to speak with the local organizers, with the suppliers. So languages, from a marketing perspective, languages is a very, very important skill to have. Then obviously organizational skills, being very prioritizing, because the racing calendar never stops. We have 23 races. So when you organize one race, in the middle of a race, you're already in the pre-planning phase of the other race, and then wrapping up the race you're at. So it's a wheel which is always spinning. So I think very much being an organizational talent, prioritizing, building relationships, open to travel. I would say those are the main skills which come to my mind just now.
Great, thank you so much.
And this international aspect. So I think, sorry if I'm interrupting you, but if you have this in you, that you go wherever you are, even if you haven't been in this country, and you have this openness and curiosity to meet the locals or the local supplier, it's just an added benefit, because it will help you in doing your job even better.
Cool. A question now from Jesus. It's great that everybody is participating. Keep sending your questions, and we'll get to those. So, greetings from Rennes in France. So being part of a team, how does the competition between the drivers of the same team feel? In this case, I was talking about Lewis and Valtteri Bottas.
So it is a team sport. And I think it took me quite a while to answer my question in my mind. As I said previously, is it a sport? And it is a massive team sport. So it's all about how can we be best together, how can we bring the best out in each other, and this also is valid for our drivers, because only together we can win a championship, and this counts for every single level within the organization and at track.
Oh, good answer. So then also says thank you here. There's a few more. Carolina. Hi, Lena. Thanks for your insights. How is it to be a woman in such a male-dominated industry? Have you faced any challenges in your path so far? Carolina, I think you connected a bit later. But okay, I'll let Lena reply shortly. But there is an answer to that earlier before, so you can watch the replay as well. But Lena, let's answer to Carolina.
Yeah, so basically I would say I'm quite used to work in sports, so I'm used to be around male employees and male teammates. So for me, there was not a major challenge in F1. In my previous experiences, organizing events in certain countries of the world has proven to be difficult because obviously it's not in every country it's that easy to just go out and get things done as a woman. So I would say I personally haven't experienced something negative in Formula One, but in my past, there were situations where it was definitely more difficult to be a woman than a man. So there are challenges, but hopefully with time and hopefully very quickly, those challenges will disappear as well, and we just be equal amongst us, because I think collaborating between women and men and different cultures is just fascinating, and sport is offering this ground of diversity, and we all can only benefit and be better together.
Cool, thank you. Question here. Oh, well, there's more questions coming in. Sorry, I'll get to those.
Perfect. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, Lena, Mike might be thinking of working with motorsports because he's asking, are salaries higher in Formula One due to the prestige for events and marketing roles and worldwide travel, or is it similar to football, volleyball, etc.? And is it UK wages pounds or German euros?
So my salary is paid in pounds, if that's of interest.
But do you have an idea how salaries in motorsport or even Formula One compare to others?
Not really, because the positions I had before were more on a training position. So from my personal experience, obviously, it's difficult to compare. But I think what I would like to pick out of this question is, are the salaries higher because of the prestige of the Formula One events? And I would say, from my perspective, I don't think this really makes an impact. Of course, there are sports in the world where the salaries are lower because the sport is less known than others. But I wouldn't say that the salaries per se are impacted by the prestige as Formula One experiences.
Cool. Now, Lena, as I mentioned here, we have this Education Virtual Expo happening now. We had the first live day yesterday. It was great. There is a link in the description for anyone who wants to check out how the day went and presentations and all that. It was a great keynote and panel there too.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to, you mentioned the FIFA Master and somehow here and there how that was important. But if I talk specifically about the importance of education for someone pursuing a career in sport, what would you say about it? I'm not asking about that one particular master specifically. Of course, you can use that example, but investing in education, what would you say?
From my point of view, is super important. I'm just very curious about learning new things. So for me, is it my job or my environment? If I can't learn more, I feel kind of stuck and not developing. So for me, education is a massive point. And of course, from my background, I can only rely back to my bachelor I did and the FIFA Master I did. And I would say it's incredibly important because you learn the basics. I was fortunate enough that I knew quite early on where I want to work in. So I decided to have the basis of like international business. But then I had already doing my bachelor degree, the focus on Congress and event management. And I actually learned things which I'm using in my job now. So how do I set up Excel sheets? How do I set up budgets? How do I be using project management tools? So I was fortunate enough that I found my path very early on, and lucky enough that there were elements in both my bachelor and my master where I have elements which translate into my actual daily work. And coming back to the FIFA Master, I think working and learning amongst such an international group has very much opened my eyes, because we all came from different backgrounds, all with a love of sport, but different backgrounds, being a lawyer, being an accountant, being from an event side. So sport is so diverse that it was great to just get this input from different angles. And coming back to your answer, or your question, I think it's the foundation of a career in sports. And I find it incredible what you achieve with your fairs in sport and your conferences, to just make people aware of this, because in the past, in particular in Germany, this was not natural that you can study sports in the marketing side. It was always easy to study sports, to become a sports teacher, or while some fortunate people turned into professional athletes. But this area of sports marketing was not a given when I started in Germany. So coming to a British school where it was way more natural to looking into sports event management, was great. So I'm a massive supporter of education, definitely.
Right. And if I was to ask you specifically then about your experience at the FIFA Master, what was your favorite thing about that, or maybe the favorite thing for your career? And even if you can pick a favorite moment, what is the thing that, if you have a great memory, or what is that you think of when you think of the Master?
When I think of the Master, I really think about 27 incredible people who are so intelligent and wonderful human beings, from who I all learned my own single things. So I lived with somebody from Indonesia and Azerbaijan, and just learning from them and their different cultures and point of views, and challenging myself to become a better person, but also in a professional environment, is just where I will be ever grateful for. And I think the FIFA Master as well it's not only about football, and I think that's super important. I wrote my master dissertation about UFC, so Ultimate Fighting, how to bring an American sport to Europe. So I would have never done it if I wouldn't be for the group or for the FIFA Master. So it's really eye-opening what elements in the sports world are out there, and where you ultimately can find work if you're interested in working in sports. So it's very, very different elements of the FIFA Master, which really helped me in my career in building this network of sports lovers, really.
Great. Thank you, Lena. So we're actually already close to get to the hour mark. So it's been fast. So I'm giving a heads up to anyone that if you have any question that you would like to ask, do it now. There's one here from Nadine Ismail. He says, "What's next?" So saying what you're planning for the future. I mean, don't know how much you can say, but maybe in a very long term, what is it that you're planning to achieve in your career? Do you have a plan designed?
I have.
It was funny, just just for me to mention. Yesterday we had a super cool panel at the event, and it started with a keynote by a professor called Simon Chadwick, and he was talking about making a plan where you want to be in 5 years or even more, and then kind of think backwards strategically to know kind of the steps that you need to take. Is it something that you do? Do you know? Is it something that you can tell?
So I definitely agree that in your mind, you need some sort of plan if you want to progress. And I mean, for me, standing still and not learning is a big one. So when I get to this environment or the step where I feel like I'm not challenged anymore, I cannot progress, then I feel like I get a bit itchy feet, and I need to think about, okay, what's next to really achieve my long-term goal. What I can say is that I was lucky enough in the COVID time, which hit the event industry, and which was a very, very difficult time, that I got to work on a project on Formula E to really set up a team from the scratch to really design the hospitality and events team. And I realized within those 1.5 years, which was very calm on the F1 side, I was able to learn a lot to really set up a team, get your own employee or your own team member in. And for me, it's like, yes, I have a plan in my mind. I'm still looking for a few elements to align. And then there's a next step coming, yes, hopefully.
That's great. Good. And by the way, what's the big difference of working with Formula One and Formula E? Especially, I think that's an interesting comparison because you work in both events in the same team, but I imagine that they happen similarly but differently. So what are the main differences?
What attracted me to Formula E is that it's a younger championship, so it's not yet as established as Formula One, but still it's an recognized championship in motorsport, and the team is way smaller. So from my academic background, I'm quite broad. So I've had my international business, as I mentioned before. I'm good in event management, different areas. So working in the FE side just played to my cards because they needed a bit of an all-rounder to set it up from the scratch and get the ball rolling on the FE side. And as it's a smaller team, you're way more exposed, as in all other teams as well, if you work in a sort of startup, to work with team members of all different levels, be involved in all those different discussions and conversations you might not be if the team is bigger. So I think the biggest difference is really the team structure, and the size of the team, which then exposes you to a much higher learning curve. And then obviously FE is very much sustainability driven, which Formula One will catch up though with their goal in 2025 to be almost carbon neutral. So
yeah. No, it's funny that you mentioned that, and I think the upside of being in a smaller teams and the ability that you have to learn, I think, much quicker. That's, for instance, one of the advice that I normally give to people that are graduating. They think where they want to go, and sometimes they always want to go to, excuse me, big companies, corporations, or federations. Whereas sometimes I say, if you go to like a smaller place where, I don't know, you'd be dealing directly with the CEO of the business, or sometimes it's a small company that deals with the whole market, you will learn so much more and so much faster than being, a coordinator or an intern, in a specific department of a specific division, and be doing only that. So I see exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and I think this is a really, really valid point, and I cannot agree more with you. It's like really spreading your wings, right? Still having the opportunity to find your unique point, your niche. I've been basically tasked, and I think it might tie quite nicely into the conversation we're having, that I'm in a very lucky position to have very great relationship with my FIFA masters, with my mentors, with my former managers. And they basically, what I can hear between the lines is like, Lena, now you're kind of in on your career path where you need to find your niche. And I think this really made me thinking, because I love to be broad. And I think this is really what came for a benefit, what I achieved in the Formula E team. But the next step, one part of the next step will be, what is your niche? So yeah, there's a lot to think about and a lot of excitement learning to take from. But as I mentioned earlier, as well as it's always follow your heart as well, because deep down in you or inside you, you know what's right. And so there's always two things to it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. There is one last question here before we wrap up. Actually, I don't know if this is one that you even can answer, because maybe it doesn't really fall on your area. But since the question's here, I'll ask. If you can answer, you do. If you don't feel you can, then you don't. But does the bargaining power of suppliers and sponsors put a lot of pressure on an F1 team?
There is a very important relation between the teams and the sponsors and the partners. And of course, if any part of the stakeholder net is not happy, then there is pressure, right?
Okay.
But we're trying to be very collaborative.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I have actually, before we go, I don't know if I mentioned, but there's Mohammed also came here a bit later, I think, and saying hello from Tehran. Thank you, Mohammed. Before we go, Lena, we just hit the hour mark. So as I said, it flew by. It's been great. It's so nice to reconnect with you after so long.
It's been
I always ask my guests here to recommend a book or maybe a podcast, a YouTube channel, something like that. But is there any of those that you would like to recommend?
I have two, because I tried to think, or I'm trying to think what could tie into the conversation we're having. So one book which I'm started but haven't finished yet is the 5 a.m. Club.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. Club, yeah. It's a book which I read a lot about on social media. I haven't finished it yet, but I love mornings, because in the morning, when the majority of people are still sleeping, it's quiet. You can get your thoughts lined up. You can spend some time on with yourself, which I think is very important in a very busy sport environment or general work environment. So that's a book which I started to read and which I think I will love, because I love an early start to the day. And then what I love reading as well on LinkedIn is the Harvard Business Review. I think they have super nice short articles, which are always a nice idea for a thought of a day, really. And one which really sticks out and which ties in back to our conversation is, should jobs be basically tailor-made to people, or should the people tailor-made to the jobs? And I think this was really, really interesting one when we think about, do we need to think in a box, or can we step outside the box? So
and what do you think? Which one?
I think we should create jobs. We should basically take the strength and the creativity of a person and then see how it can evolve best in an environment. So I'm very much outside the box, because I think this just limits your thinking. And that's my personal approach, right? There are different opportunities or perspectives, but this ties nicely back into as well what you said. If you work in a smaller team, you can be more creative. You can spread your wings a little bit more. So I'm very much outside the box, yes.
All right. Lena, again, this has been great. So I can't thank you enough. I also want to thank everybody that has been watching and is still here until now, until came all the way to the end of the interview. So if you like that, I want to ask them to hit that like button there. Show Lena your love, your appreciation. And if you like that kind of content, that kind of interview, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get all the notifications for future videos. But I hope to meet you in person, see you in person again very soon. Finally, we're starting to travel again.
Thank you so much for having me, and it will be great to connect with everybody who has listened. And if I can be of any help at any point in your career or just bouncing back ideas, just let me know. I really love connecting with new people.
So go and look for Lena on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And thank you so much, Joel.
Don't go anywhere, Lena. I'm just going to
I'm staying here.
To finish this. There are a couple more comments coming up. So Aditya saying thank you. Camila here saying great chat. Thank you so much. Hope to be your colleague one day. And Jesus, let me put you in the screen here while I'm reading those. Thank you, Lena, as well. Today's iWorkinSport Live was very interesting. Thank you, Jesus, for being here. And Mike, thank you for being with us, Mike.
Thanks,
and everyone that is there. Again, let me remind you, if Lena mentioned, where is that? The comments. Here you go. Sorry for that. 1 second. There we go. So Lena mentioned the importance of education. If you want to meet programs, talk to alumni of some of the best programs in the world, and meet their admissions team if you're considering applying for some of those courses. There is going to be a second live day of the Education Virtual Expo on the 3rd of November. So it will be late afternoon and evening here in Europe, so morning and afternoon in the Americas. There's a link in the description. One thing I forgot to mention, how could I forget that? We're giving away a scholarship to one of the people that goes to the event and apply to one of the programs. If they are accepted, they will be eligible to get one of our scholarships. If there's only one person that does all that, he gets up to 5,000 euros in a scholarship. We help you pay for the tuition fee. If there's more people that qualify, then we'll pull a name out of the hat and we do a sweepstake or something, and we'll give one scholarship to one of you. So this is it for me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you very soon. Join us next Wednesday at the Education Virtual Expo, and then at the next interview too. Bye-bye, everyone. See you.